You ready? You ready to do this? Are you ready to do it?
I'm ready. Ready as I'm going to be.
Let's do it. Let's do it. This is going to be fun. Welcome to the True North Podcast, where two practicing light workers get together every week to continue an ongoing conversation about wholeness and healing for body and mind so that you can live as your true self and follow your true north. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Abby. Still don't like it.
You went
and
back
I'm
to the
Abby.
original. Abby!
And I'm Abby. Hi.
Oh, that was a good one.
I'm Abby. Hello, I'm Abby. I don't know.
I just need you to give me like 12 more of those, and then I'll just edit them in at different points. Whatever is like fits the vibe of the recording.
Oh, goodness. Yes, I'm Abby.
Are you?
That's
right
a loaded
now?
question. Can we start with you?
No.
Can we start with you?
Because you used a key word in
What?
you didn't know this was a key word in my experience, but it is. We just had our little, what is that?
That's
Is
a
there a
train horn.
train
So
near
the weather is so fall-like. My windows are wide open, and I have train tracks near.
It is beautiful.
Apparently,
weather.
somebody was on the tracks. They were honking at him.
So
Keyword. I had a
we
trigger
had our
word.
little planning meeting right before this, and you said it has been a shit show. And
That's a cue
that to me, in my experience, that word is very loaded with things are very not great. I mean, that is kind of what that word means, but it's just one of those words that makes me perk up extra muchly.
Yeah.
So
I try
and I
not to let
refrain
things
from-
get to shit show status in my world.
But they have been there apparently.
Yeah.
And I didn't ask you about it so that I could ask you right now.
You did on purpose. Are you sure
Yeah.
you don't want to start with you, Ryan?
We'll never get to you. I know what you're doing. I talk way too much.
Well, this is buried in there. There's nothing wrong with that. Oh, gosh. Where do I start?
Start at the beginning.
Well,
And when you get to the end, stop.
Just like that. Okay. Yeah.
My favorite quote from Alice in Wonderland. Mad Hatter.
Mad Hatter,
He
exactly.
said that, yes.
That's so weird that you mentioned that. I had this really weird dream last night, and I'm trying
About
to
the Mad
interpret
Hatter?
it. No, but there is a rabbit in Alice in Wonderland.
Yes, a white
And something happened. I had a conversation with this rabbit, and I need to kind of sit in stillness for a while and try to figure out what we were talking about. But it was important enough where when I was half awake, I was like, okay, you need to remember the Cheshire rabbit. And I'm like, no, it's not the Cheshire rabbit. It's the Cheshire cat. And the rabbit is something else. But you had a conversation with the rabbit. But the only way I remembered it is by saying the Cheshire
Rabbit.
Rabbit.
Yeah. White rabbit. There are two rabbits in Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah. But it was weird. It was a weird dream.
According to the Google, if you see a rabbit in
thank
your
you.
dream, it signifies luck, magical power, and success. You have a positive outlook on life. Alternatively, rabbits symbolize abundance, warmth, fertility, and sexual activity.
Interesting.
In particular, if you see a white rabbit in your dream,
Which
it
it was.
symbolizes faithfulness in love.
Interesting.
I don't know.
What about
How
Alice
much
in
that is
Wonderland
bullshit.
rabbit? How much of that is bullshit?
Marianne!
Yes. Anyway, Alice in Wonderland. I digress.
Okay. So, you have had a shit show. A show of shit.
A show of shit. Well, I'll try to spare details because it's probably boring to the general
I
audience
disagree,
listening.
But your truth is your truth.
Well, okay, so I went to Dodge City, Kansas this past weekend.
Dodge City.
Dodge City.
Sounds
It's kind
fun.
of out in west, somewhat central Kansas. But so my parents live in Nebraska. My sister and her family live in Denver. And then, of course, we're here in the Dallas area. And so my mom had this idea because they both have campers and we're kind of maybe thinking about getting one. And so my mom had this idea like, hey, let's all meet in Dodge City, because it's sort of like equal distant for all three of our families, and camp for a weekend. And I'm like, okay, sweet. All right. So I rented an RV. Rented an RV, a drivable RV for the weekend, which we were super duper excited about.
Yeah.
And just holed up in Dodge City for the weekend with my family. We were camping with the cows or no, not camping, golfing with the cows, because literally the golf course was like right in the middle of this pasture. I'm not gonna lie, it's like all this
Were there
prairie
cows
grasses.
on the golf course?
close enough. The only thing from stopping them to the green grass was the fence, but you could reach out and touch one.
Wow.
Yeah, they were pretty close. It was kind of crazy. But it was just kind of one of those weekends where I just could not settle down. I was just agitated all weekend, and I don't really know why. And I'm just kind of sorting through the pieces where when I go home and see my family, I have a really hard time fitting in my morning practice. Number one, especially sleeping in an RV, you don't sleep. Every experience I've ever had in an RV, I've never slept well. They're noisy, they're loud. Like if you don't leave the windows open, like there it was dreadfully hot, and so we had the AC going. It's like a Mack truck running all night right next to your ear. It's like constantly running and it's loud, so I don't sleep. So getting up early is really hard for me because I love my sleep. And then nobody else in my family really kind of has the same spiritual practices as I do. So it's not really, I don't want to say that it's not honored, but I just don't think that they understand the importance. And so, like we had 2 mornings of golf, which is fine, but we did early tea times because it was so hot. And so then I didn't wake up earlier to do, my practice in any way. And plus there's no privacy to do it.
Right.
And so I just kind of let it ride. And I'm wondering if that's like part of my agitation, is because when I'm around my family, I expend a lot of energy. They draw a lot of energy out of me. And my sister, while we were there, has PTSD from some horrible traumas in her past, and she had an episode while we were there, and I am her person. And so that takes a lot for me too. And so then when I'm not replenishing that and I'm not sleeping, I'm like totally exhausted. So then we drive home, and if you've never experienced Kansas, it's incredibly windy. Like no trees to stop the wind. It's like gale force winds on a daily basis. And so driving this RV home was just like, and I'm the driver because, I used to drive a school bus for the YMCA. So I am the designated driver when it
RV
comes
driver,
to large vehicles. So I'm just like bracing myself all the way home for these big gusts of wind that practically blow you off the road because they just sort of come out of nowhere and you have to be ready for them. And so, I get home and then find out my son doesn't have school this week because someone in his class has the Rona.
Oh, no.
And so they're out of school. So that's sort of like, like you have this idea in your head, like, okay, your week's going to be this way. And I'm a planner and I'm like, okay, I've got to get these kind of things done. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait, reset on top of being really tired. And then we returned the RV yesterday, and now this RV owner is coming back with a whole bunch of things they're saying are wrong.
Oh, no.
And I'm getting really angry about it. Incredibly angry about it. Like I am just, all day long, I have just been so
This is today?
agitated. Yeah, I returned it yesterday, and it's kind of started yesterday. Like, well, can you tell me about the big scratch that's on the top and the back? And I'm like, there is no big scratch. Like there were a bunch on there that I see him complaining. This is why I didn't want to talk about this shit show. I feel like I'm
it's
complaining.
not complaining. You're calling it that, but that's not what it is. You're sharing your experience.
Okay, sharing my experience. Yeah. So, I'm like, there's not. We stayed in a campground where there's no trees, and like I'm that person that's really meticulous about things, and especially if it's not mine. I very much value property, and so especially if I'm renting, I'm probably more cautious in using it or overusing it just because I don't own it. And so the list just kind of kept growing. He kept emailing me like, well, tell me about this, why isn't this empty, or what, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, the list, at this point, we're going to lose a very large security deposit for what I don't feel is wrong. And so I'm just angry about it. I am so angry about it. And I'm like, what the heck is going on with me? So I'm kind of doing this dialogue, like, how do I stay in my true north and like deal with this situation, when I truly need to fight for this, because I don't believe that it's like, if I made a scratch, I'm going to own that and be like, yep, it was me. I totally ran into a tree or did this or whatever. But I didn't. And the things that he's kind of accusing us of, you know, there's like circumstances where I can prove him wrong. And I'm not understanding why he's doing this. And so as I'm processing and I'm wondering why I'm in this, I realized like he is triggering something huge for me, because he's probably used to renters who really don't give a shit. Like, oh, we're just renting this, we can kind of trash it. I am that opposite person. Like, I'm the person that, because I'm renting it, I am, you know, retentive about making sure it gets back even better than I got it from you. And I felt like I did that. And so what I think he's triggering is like, he's saying something about me when he's saying that there's something wrong.
Yes.
And I'm making it mean something, right?
It's a slight to your character.
It is. And so it's been interesting because I don't know how to walk myself out of this one. Because he doesn't know who I am, right? And this comes down to a very large chunk of money. And so, you know, and kind of reading the reviews now on this RV rental site, I realized that people are losing their security deposits over things that they've disputed. I'm like, wow, this is interesting. Yeah. And so
it's almost like it's a business practice.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Well, I just looked him up on Facebook, and did you know that he just had a hysterectomy not too long ago?
Yes. So I did that. I've been trying to, like, okay, right? Like, put on my cap of, well, they probably get a lot of renters who really do just kind of trash the place. So they're probably coming in with judgmental eyes already, right? Because that's maybe what they're used to. It could just be practice of they're just thoroughly combing through everything because it's a product that's, what is that word I'm looking for? Depreciating all the time. And so you have to kind of constantly keep up with it to make sure that you're giving the next customer the same or better experience. And so I've like done all that, and yet I cannot get out of it. So I'm wondering like if it's this combination of, because I'm out of sorts, like I didn't put my bubble on all weekend. I didn't ground myself. I wasn't spiritually connected. I wasn't breathing. I was just there sort of holding my breath all weekend long. And then I roll right into this and I'm having a hard time staying out of it. And so that's where I am. I just like, and then my schedule getting thrown off with my son's school just sort of turned it into the shit show for me. Not his fault, just like
No, it's that fucker who didn't wear a mask that got that kid corona in the first place.
No. No.
We're not going to talk about that. Right.
Not going to talk about
You can hear that conversation in episode 20 something or other.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you think, hypothetically, if you had maintained your morning practice the entire time you were there, and you had, you'd built up all the defenses and you had gotten good sleep and you had recharged yourself and you were bubbling, do you think like the schedule shift and the security deposit thing would be affecting you the way that I can't words, the way that it is?
Well, that's what I'm wondering. And I don't know that I can really know, except if I go back and look at my evidence, and I can say that when I'm in regular practice, things don't hit me as hard. Like I do have a little bit more empathy. I can be more the observer instead of being reactive. Now the sleep thing I cannot control. There's just no way I'm going to get fantastic sleep in an RV.
And there's no way you're going to operate now as though you had gotten that sleep.
Yes. So I know I still would have been physically tired. But I think I would have been, even though that would have happened, I think I still would have been in a better mental space had I been kind of keeping up with it through the weekend.
So anger is a cover-up for pain. And you've already named the fact that it's not this guy's words that are really causing you the pain. He's triggering words that were already there. Like it's a here's a part of your identity, and this person's calling that into question and saying that you're not as great as you want to believe that you are. But that still wouldn't hurt you if that wound wasn't already there. Like this is a wound reopening, not a wound being made.
Yes.
So whose voices put that wound there in the first place? Because then that's where you need to go.
Right. That's a list of people.
Yeah.
And it's
Not
a
that you
list
need to
that
go to those people and be like, you messed me up with your...
No. But I know,
you know?
I know what you're saying. Yeah. And it's a list that I kind of constantly run through because some of those people are still very active in my life. And so some are not.
Right.
But so that's why I'm trying to, I mean, that's why I went there. Like I initially went there to think, okay, how can I take the reaction out of it? And so, yes, figuring out that it's something else, it has nothing to do with him that's triggering me. I need to go back to those stories, work on those stories, and then take that out of this current story so that I can just be responsive, give the facts, and hopefully get my security deposit back, right?
Correct. The problem isn't that he's trying to keep your deposit. The problem is that you're so angry about it.
Yes.
Because you'll make that money, but even if he keeps it, you're not going to be on the streets, or you're not going to be unable to put protein on the table for your kid.
Exactly. And that's the thing too, is like, I find myself asking myself the question, like, why am I getting so angry about this? Because at the end of the day, if I don't get it back, it's not going to hurt me.
Right.
But yet I'm angry about it. So I know it wasn't just that.
You're running low on resources, and he's digging up old wounds.
He is. And so it really kind of, it's been a long time since I've sort of, let's call it, that I've been this unguarded. Mm-hmm. And I think this is where a lot of people sit right now, because I do feel like you and I think operate at a higher level, as far as like...
We are better than most people in every way.
That's not what I mean.
We have a podcast.
Not what I mean. We have a podcast. Let's say, I think we are very aware and we're very mindful people because we practice, not just because I'm saying we're better, that we do it. Like we are very intentional about practicing because we do know what it does for us and how it keeps us.
Yeah. And we operate on the level that people normally do when they have a regular ritualistic mindfulness practice.
Yeah, right. And so, but sometimes I assume that people operate the same way. And then I realize, like going through this situation, that, everybody's experiences are different. And so it just brought up an interesting question for me. Like, how do I help people come back to that place if they don't have a regular practice? Because I'm having a hard time coming back to that place.
Well, what I'm getting a tap on the shoulder to ask you is, could it just be that all this was put in place to give you an excuse to build empathy for people who operate here all the time? Like you just said, people who don't have a mindfulness practice, the way you're operating right now is what life is to them.
Yes.
And it's what life is to you right now because you weren't able to do your practice.
Yes.
And it sucks. And I hear you saying you want to get back to the Abby that you are when you have that regular practice and you've got all your tools and resources and you're fully charged. Mm-hmm. But what if the task here is to sit with yourself in this? Mm-hmm. To bolster your ability to sit with other people in their muck. Mm-hmm. Instead of try to pull them out of it.
Well, that's right. Pull them out of it.
Like what would it look like for you to just be where you are instead of being like, I got to get back there. I got to get my meditation practice. I got to get that resilience. I got to get to where I'm more unassailable.
Well, I don't even know if it's that. I don't think I'm rushing to get back to it. I want to get back to it, but I'm really just trying to understand why the anger keeps spinning. I just want to understand the anger because I know that it's a cover up. I know it's something else. And so that's what I know there's a lesson that I'm probably trying to learn. There's a reason that sort of nothing happens on accident, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a reason that all of this is coming together and a lesson that I need to learn from it. And I just don't know what it is yet. And so I am sitting with it and I am ready to get back to mindful Abby. Yeah, it does. There. But I know it will be helpful, right? Because to fully understand how somebody else is to actually walk in their shoes and know what it feels like. And I think I have a lot of that in many areas of life. But this right now, I'm just trying to understand, like, what is it? What's the lesson to learn? What's the anger? Where do I need to do my own work?
Where in your body do you feel the anger? Where does it live?
In my shoulders, like right up here.
Like right.
Kind of going down into my shoulder blades. And then up here on the right side of my neck.
Have you talked to the anger? As though it had a soul.
No, it's sort of just been building like within the last, like it started last night, and then I did actually sleep hard and had this weird dream about the Alice in Wonderland rabbit, and then woke up this morning and, kind of just started, I see it as, so I see my anger, it's like a tornado. Mm-hmm. And so it like started this morning. Like. Yes. Exactly. So it started this morning, and it's just sort of like been gaining debris, right? As it's just spinning and getting bigger. And so I haven't really gotten into it because at the same time, like I've been trying to get my son somewhere so that you and I can have a meeting and then we could record, like, right. I'm in full on tasking mode. So I actually haven't had a moment to kind of sit with it yet. So that's why it's sort of still
there. Yeah, that's okay.
So I'll keep you posted, but it's just kind of like, whew, it knocked me on my ass this morning.
My go-to when I'm in situations like that is to personify the thing. Like just talk to the anger itself or the pain in your shoulder, or like as though it's something else that has its own consciousness and awareness, to be like, why are you here? Like what?
Well, this is full on lizard thinking. Like I'm getting angry about him saying something about my character because my lizard brain, which is Figment, that's the name that I've given it, is trying to tell me now that I'm not good enough, that I don't know how to take care of things, and that I am a terrible person and I'm a bad person and I've ruined something and I've caused inconvenience and hurt for somebody else. Like that's what's going on underneath the anger. So I can tell Figment to fuck off, but
those voices are still talking either way.
He's just loud because he's like, he knows he can kind of win right now.
I would even take a step back and say Figment is the reason that you think that this guy is even talking about your character in the first place.
Correct.
He's talking about his RV, and ultimately he's revealing himself.
Yes, that's true.
And it's
that's
not
a really good point.
even about you or who you are. But then when Figment gets a hold of it, then he turns it and says he is attacking you as a person, and he is right.
Yes.
And he's not.
And he's not. No, but you are exactly right in what you're saying. That yes.
I have a document. I didn't expect. I don't know if I'm gonna read it. It's on my phone. I've been writing it. I've been building in it and kind of like molding it and shaping it over time. But the title is For When You're Feeling Defensive.
Which I
don't
am.
know if you can see on my camera. Whoa, it has
a little
table.
Bit.
It's got a table of contents.
Table of contents. That's intense.
And it says, I had to use this yesterday. Like this is becoming my best friend. And my wife told me that I should turn it into like a coffee table book or something. It's very custom to me.
Okay.
But it says, what are you defending yourself against? 1, what they said is correct. 2, what they said is incorrect. 3, they said it just to hurt me. And then it goes into how I feel in each of those scenarios, at best, at worst, whatever. And then there's a little thing that comes behind it and says, okay, well, here's what you would say to a best friend who's feeling what you're feeling. And so they're right. At best, you feel embarrassed. At worst, you feel ashamed. And then it digs into those. They're wrong. You think if only they had this information or they had this perspective or you could fill in the gaps, they wouldn't think that. And you want to set the record straight. That's not going to work. And then the whole they just want to hurt me was, A, you can't really know. And B, if you have enough information to make a very educated guess that they are, well, it sounds like they're hurting too. Are you a victim or a healer? Boom. And so it kind of I don't let myself off the hook, but I also encourage self-compassion. Like it's both and. But I'm finding that when I'm feeling mucky or I'm feeling angry or I'm feeling defensive or I'm feeling attacked, I can literally just read through that thing, and every single time it's like a paragraph. just reading it and hearing it in my own voice read back to me, I'm like, oh, you're right, previous me. And then boom, there's a tool. It's like, here is a tool that you can use.
Mm-hmm.
But
so why aren't you sending that my way?
I am. I'm gonna send it to you right now. I would read it on the podcast, but again, it's very custom to me and how I operate and how I think. I don't know if that would be helpful writ large, but I really do think that I'm going to put this on our.
But you're onto something.
On the Tribe Facebook group. Yeah. And just kind of, I mean, for when people will come to me saying things like what you're saying, this is something that I would give them, like a little flow chart.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like one of those little fun maps where it's like, if yes, go to this arrow. If no, go here. And then you sort of keep pieces. I love that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you think that they're actually correct? If so, let's deal with that. If you think they're wrong, let's deal with that. And then are they really correct? And is it your brain? Whatever, And so let's see. Share a note. I'm literally going to do it right now because I'll forget if I don't.
Oh, fantastic.
For when you're feeling defensive.
Yes.
Abby Cameron. And then you can update it to match
with my language. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and there it is. It just popped up. How lovely. Thank you.
Yeah.
I will keep you posted, but right now I don't want to get out of it because I'm still I want to understand it. So I'm going to sit in the darkness, but I will let you know.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, so you also brought some heaviness to our planning meeting. So
I did.
What's going on with you?
I have been getting one of those things where everywhere you turn, the universe gives you the same little reminder. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking for it because I wrote it down. Okay, so here's the Earth. Okay, so I'm going to start at the end and then go backwards. Today I cried unexpectedly while saying nothing that I would have expected to make the tears start happening. And then I was all, oh, where did that come from? What is this about? And I went and did some investigating, and that's when my guides came and said, hey, we've been trying to tell you this. So here it is. And the first time that I got this little message was time out. It's just me, Ryan. It's just us. Abby doesn't actually know that I'm doing this, but I'm sure she'll be okay with it. At this point in the recording, I went into telling some stories about some conversations that I had in the weeks leading up to it. And in listening to this episode, getting ready to produce it and publish it, I remembered that in those conversations, I actually committed to keeping them between myself and the people I was having them with. So it feels very much not good on my insides to release the content of those conversations publicly, even without naming names or anything like that. So the bad news is you're not going to get to hear that little slice of our conversation. But the good news is you really don't need it. All I was really getting at was that I kept seeing a recurring theme in conversations I was having, that I tend to measure myself, my value, my worth, my success on certain benchmarks that are completely arbitrary, man-made, and don't really mean anything. So without further ado, let's jump back into the thing. How's this for raw? And so that was my big takeaway from that thing, was what am I comparing myself to as a measure of how successful or effective I am? And is that the thing I should be comparing myself to? And so then I asked myself, how am I... Okay, so let's assume that I have that benchmark. What are the metrics I'm using to figure out if I'm even close to that benchmark? And are those the metrics I should be using to measure my success regardless of if I have a benchmark? And of course, all the benchmarks are exterior, and all the metrics are exterior.
Yes.
So what the fuck, man? My feelings of crippling inadequacy come from the fact that I have
somebody else's measuring
stupid benchmarks and stupid metrics for where I stand on those arbitrary things.
In parenting?
In everything. in relationship, in my energy healing, in my pursuit of living a life that qualifies me to call myself an intellectual, all of it. Mm-hmm. And then so I'm sitting here just talking to a friend about this, just one more benchmark I've set for myself arbitrarily, that makes no sense if you think about it. It's a benchmark in the past, and I'm using it to measure how I'll be in the future. And it's not even me. It's not even a me benchmark. It's not. I mean, it's just. It's so. It makes logical sense, but it doesn't. Barely, and it doesn't make like heart sense. It doesn't make soul sense. You know. And so I'm just telling this person that I'm realizing that I've been using this benchmark to measure myself, and then living in fear that I won't measure up moment by moment. And I just started crying. Like, I even remember saying, like, wait a second, I'm crying now. What is this? Like, what's happening? Like, I'm still narrating it, and my body's, like, releasing. And so she suggested that I go outside in the ground. So I went outside, barefoot on the grass, and I just asked. And all of a sudden, two of my guides just showed up. And they were like, we both needed to be here for this. My master guide and the one that's here to help me heal. And they basically were like, you're still Aladdin trying to think he's supposed to be Prince Ali. Like, you that's what you're trying to do. You're trying so hard to be something else. And it's tricky because the thing I'm trying to be is a better version of myself. But they're like, you're not an oak tree yet. Even if it's a better version of yourself that you're trying to be, that's still something other than what you are. You are right now what the world needs you to be right now. And what was it that they said? They said something. They didn't say it. They wrote it. They wrote it on me. I had an experience of them writing it on me, onto my person. The quote was, you are your own measuring stick.
Yes. I say that often.
Yes. And so really it was just this idea. I don't know if we've talked about it on the podcast or not, but it's like a light bulb that's got dirt on it. You start to think that the dirt is you. And so you start trying to be a better version of yourself. When really you're already the best version of yourself in there. You just have to clean the dirt off so the light can shine through better. And that's what they were telling me. Like, you're already everything that you need to be. Just try harder to be what you are and less hard to be what you think everybody else wants you to be. Which, again, how many times have we said that on this podcast?
Right.
How many times? Like, that's the whole thing in a nutshell. And I have two spirit guides meeting me in the backyard to, like, pound it into my brain.
Yeah, same thing with my experience this morning. Exactly.
Yes. Like, you know, in your head,
we've said this. I know
you can coach yourself. You can listen to our own fucking podcast and be coached by us out of what you're going through, but you're still going through it. Oh, and another one was one of our tribe members was asking a question about, like, how do you, like, if you're in your true north, should you really, really look forward to the work you're doing, right? Because she's doing something that she believes is in her true north, kind of like maybe in the ballpark at least, but just has has lost all motivation to keep doing it. And I didn't craft this whole answer because I don't like just taking a question and being like, here's a paragraph, I'm so smart. But I mean, it was essentially like being in your true north is you being what you are, not doing what you think you should do. And anything that you do when you're in your true north is what you're supposed to do. Like, the doing is just a natural consequence of you being what you're supposed to be. So focus on what you're being, not what you're doing. And then, of course, hearing that, I typed it all out and then I deleted it. But before deleting it, I read it back to myself. And I was like, oh, there it is again. Just be what you are. Because what you are is the thing that you are supposed to be. That is your true north. And so I'm still carrying some of the heaviness because I'm realizing I don't know. Like, it's almost like the weather's fine, but I have all these layers on because I feel like I need to stay warm, and then I'm complaining about how hot it is.
It's a good analogy.
Like, and they're just like, take it all off. I'm like, once you're stripped down to just you will be exactly, that's the Goldilocks zone.
You'll be just fine. So I get this visual as you're telling me this story. This is the visual that comes to mind, and it's applicable for you, me, anybody that's kind of finding themselves in this situation. when you're out and you're using an actual compass, like let's say we're out in the woods, we've got a map, a physical map in our hands, not a phone. We have a compass, and you're using your compass and your map in combination to get to an end place, an end point. And so, you turn your compass a certain degrees based on the map, readings, whatever, and you start heading that direction. And all of a sudden, you realize you're off course. You might be going slightly askew, where after enough time and distance, you're maybe off too far. And so you have to stop and you have to course correct. And so you're going to stop, recalibrate, fix your compass, start walking the different direction that you feel you now need to go. But the time that you spent getting from point A to the point B that isn't going in the right direction, you haven't lost anything.
Right.
You were going where you thought you needed to go. You were going in a direction. There is movement. There are lessons to be learned. Things that you're seeing that you wouldn't have seen otherwise, experiences and circumstances. And so I feel like that's exactly what you're talking about, is like, that's the visual I got. Like, all you need to do is just, realize that you have been using someone else's measuring stick other than your own. And so you simply course correct, adjust your compass and get back on track, but you haven't lost anything. You've gained a whole lot of insight from sort of going that, different direction for a little while, and maybe that's exactly where you were supposed to be. Maybe there was something there that you were supposed to be, so that's where it took you.
Right. And then when you're looking back in hindsight, you realize that all those detours were always the path you were supposed to go on anyway.
Mm-hmm. And you still get to where you're going. Who cares if it's crooked? Who cares? Right. Who says your journey has to be straight?
And now we just, ruined anyone's need to ever go to a self-help seminar or anything. That's just the thing that they say. Also, I have been drinking a lot of herbal tea today, and I cannot hold this another half hour. I have to pee right now. You say some words.
Say words. Oh, he always makes me so nervous when he puts me on the spot like this. Now he's going to be gone like 5 minutes. So I have to say words because this is a podcast. No, but gosh, just to kind of finish what I was saying is it does not, if you are moving forward, I consider that to be a success. It doesn't have to be in the quote unquote right direction, because who really says that it's the right direction? The point is if you are making forward movement to get to a state or a place that you want to be, then you are exactly where you should be. And being present in that place, taking those steps forward, is kind of like what Ryan and I have talked about before, where it's putting links in a chain. Every step that you take, every small movement that you take is adding another link to this chain that is, in the end, going to be sort of your whole self, this being that you want to be. And it all just comes down to practice, practicing every single day, or as often as possible. And as I learned over the past few days, practice is incredibly important and valuable to me. This was an interesting point that I wanted to make earlier too, and I guess I didn't. But so many times I am asked the question, like, how do you know if this is really working? Because I don't feel like I'm changing. I don't feel like I'm doing anything. So how do I know if this is really working? And I think that's sort of the answer right now there. It's just like, just stop practicing for a few days and you will realize how valuable your practice is to you. Hi, welcome back.
Hello. Say everything you just said in 120 characters or less.
It was just rambling because I was put on the spot.
We talked about doing live shows.
I know.
And my favorite idea is to just get out a guitar and be like, Abby, you have 10 minutes. Talk.
If you give me a topic, I can maybe do it.
We should practice that here. We should practice that on I'll literally get one of my 17 guitars in the background and then I played my dad's guitar this morning.
That's amazing.
Yeah, this one.
Yep. Thank you, Vanna. There. That's lovely.
You like how I'm like tickling the
guitar?
Yeah,
I know. I was like,
my mom would point at a bunch of things with one finger like this. Like we would be supposed to clean our room, and she'd come in and be like, "Oh,
you gotta clean all this."
Yeah, all this. It was like a very multi-directional pointing thing. Anyway, I played my dad's guitar for the first time since he died.
Okay, I was going to ask if playing his guitar was significant. Now it is, because you haven't played it since he passed.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes.
What prompted you? Like what?
I don't know. I was right after, so I'm having a conversation with my friend, and then my eyes start leaking. And I go outside and I ground, and I have a conversation with two of my guides. And they tell me that I am my own measuring stick.
Yes.
And then I go back inside, and I'm sitting here, and I don't really know how to describe it. This has happened to me before. So I guess I do know how to describe it because I've talked about it before. But it was like someone put their finger on my shoulder and just turned me around in my little spinny bar stool that I got from IKEA. And when I stop, I'm facing the guitar. And I can feel it looking at me and looking through me. This is why I think everything has a soul.
Soul! Oh my gosh, here we go again.
So, no, but I took it and I held it in my hands, and I immediately just started tuning it because I knew that it was going to be out of tune. And, but I also was like, hey, Ryan, like, I also heard this, like, little guidance. I was like, don't use your tuning app. Don't use the piano. Like, you know what this is supposed to sound like. And so I just tune it to ear, and I get it pristine. And then I just start playing. And I realized that what I was playing was what he used to play as a warm-up. I don't know if he wrote it or if he got it somewhere, but it's like this flamenco-sounding, just little scales thing. And there's like a bass note, and there's a top part, and I was playing them both at the same time, and I just went through this whole little thing, and then I started playing a guitar riff that I wrote in a closet that I'd forgotten about. And I didn't ever write it down. It was just something I figured out, and I played it a few times. I thought, oh, that's lovely. And then I just never came back to it. And then I'm watching my hands. They start playing it again. And then I remember, it's like when you wake up and you know that you had dreams, but you can't remember what they are. And then, like, middle of the day, you're doing something else, and you're just like, oh, my God, it all came back.
It
Hit me. That was something that was written for my dad. That was something that I wrote for my dad.
Oh.
And so I'm sitting here playing this, but it's almost like the music is speaking to me. Like it's something that he wrote to me, through me, from beyond the veil in that moment. And so I'm playing his guitar, watching my fingers play something that I barely even remember how to play, feeling like my father is serenading me.
Wow.
And so, of course, there was more crying.
Right.
And then after that moment, I just, like, put it back up. And that was it. That was just the whole moment. There was no, like, epiphany, no meaning, no, you know, metaphysical, crazy Doctor Strange experience. It was just this nice, quiet little moment of connection.
But to me, that is significant. Like, it doesn't have to be mind-blowing.
Right. There was nothing trippy about it. Or there was nothing like... I mean, all it was what it was. And then it was over just as quietly and unassumingly as it started.
But to me, this is really beautiful. But, you know, you're talking about your own benchmark in terms of being a parent, a dad. You are connecting with these other dads, and then all of a sudden you have an experience with your dad. Yeah, it's almost like that was, and because you're connected, you heard the pull, you felt the pull to turn around, and then felt the pull from the guitar because it has universal energy and not a soul. And and so he was using that to grab your attention. But it almost validating, you know, like you're doing a good job. You are a good dad. Like that's beautiful to me. It was almost him reaching out, like, stop questioning yourself. You are exactly as you should be, is what he's saying.
Well, yeah, because I just told that story and then I went straight into it's not. I compared it to a benchmark. Like I said, it doesn't share any traits with other metaphysical experiences.
Right.
And maybe the lesson there is just to let it be what it is.
To me, it sounds like you sort of
just be what you are.
Yeah, and I see that as, to me, that was huge and beautiful. From my perspective, you sharing that with me. Based on kind of everything going on in your world that you've been describing.
Yeah, I actually went back after that dad's thing. I went back because I gave my son an email address when he was born, and I'll email him just whenever I think to.
Mm-hmm.
And I went back and I read every single email that I ever wrote him. And it's so strange how disassociative I get, because I was almost reading them from the perspective of the son receiving those from his dad.
Interesting.
And my first thought once I got through all of them was like, that's the dad I want to be one day. like that's like this man that wrote these emails is what I hope one day I become when I grow up.
And you already are.
Fucked up is that?
You already are.
Yeah, I wrote those emails.
Exactly.
I am that is me. But I disassociate so much from it where I'm like, man, that guy's awesome.
Okay,
I hope one day I'm that cool. Like, it's so...
So what is going to be your touchstone? I think you need to go out and get some really cool ruler and just hang it in some really prominent place.
Well, I thought about getting a ruler tattooed on my arm.
There you go.
But then I thought, that's actually really practical because then I'll never need a ruler again.
Just like, use my arm.
Why don't carpenters just have a ruler like tick marks tattooed? That makes a lot of sense.
There's some things that might be really tricky to measure with your arm. But saying.
Some things that it would help. I think I'm going to get a
but
ruler
then,
tattoo
you
for
think about like when
utilitarian
skin
purposes.
starts to sag, like you can't really, is it really still an inch?
Does forearm skin really get saggy? I've seen some pretty old people.
Seriously? Yes. My grandmother, like you can pull it off of her bones. Yes.
Well, I don't
crepey.
ever intend on becoming a grandmother. So problem solved.
Okay. Well, you should be like Graham. She's pretty cool.
With her saggy arms.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. Anyway, it was interesting how they didn't say it to me. They wrote it on me.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
What I mean is I'm standing in the fucking yard.
Yeah.
And I have my eyes closed, and I can see this like holographic imaginary image of my healing guide here and my master guide here. Mm-hmm. She's in her flowing robes. He's in his 3-piece suit. Mm-hmm. And they're standing there talking to me. And then at the very end, they approach me and their hands are on my chest and they are writing on me.
They're interesting.
And I'm not looking down and seeing it. I just know what they're writing. Mm-hmm. Together. They're like both writing it right here. You really need YouTube for this. This is like...
Yeah, you're going to have to go watch YouTube.
I've been very visual this whole time.
Yes.
They wrote it on my chest.
There you go. Get a ruler on your chest.
A ruler right here.
Right across your chest.
And then if I need to measure something, I can be like, look, from nipple to nipple is 1 foot.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. That's not weird at all.
That would definitely be the weirdest tattoo. Because I do have a chest tattoo, and when I used to wear like button-down shirts, that would be unbuttoned to here because I thought that looked cool. Like you could see the little part of it peeking out, and that's cool. But if it was just a ruler, people would be like,
But then you're comparing yourself to someone else's measuring stick.
I'll cover it up, be like, that's for me. That is for my eyes only.
It's your business what you think of my ruler.
Don't look at my ruler. I'm going me get the words written but backwards so that they only make sense when I'm looking in the mirror.
Yeah.
This is for me. Okay. So that's the heaviness that I have brought to this. It's just I'm really, really sitting with this epiphany, which I also am trying to have compassion on myself and not judge myself for the fact that this is even an epiphany at this point. This is something I have coached other people countless times to live in and realize and embody, and here I am acting like this is somehow new to me.
But don't you think, just to give yourself some grace, give myself some grace, like it's so much easier to see it in someone else
Oh, sure.
than in ourselves.
Right. Which is why we do this.
I mean, I don't know. I say this a lot, though. Like, this is what I love about you and I, is neither of us are coming out saying that we have all the answers and we know exactly what we're doing. We don't. Life, like, we're still showing up having the same struggles as everybody else. And the fact that we are mindful and aware of it and can come back and use our tools and talk about it and just say, yep, today I'm in the muck, I think is hopefully giving people sort of the permission, not that they need it from anybody but themselves, but the permission to just, sometimes life is just hard. And sometimes we have these epiphanies of things that we've been saying all along. And, oh yeah, that does relate to me.
Yeah. Or like, oh yeah, I still need to learn this. Like and that's one thing I don't like is feeling like I have learned something and then getting evidence to the contrary. I thought I was past square one and now I'm still on square one. Well, really, I'm not still on square one. I'm just on a square that's a lot like it. Like, there are a lot of square ones along the journey, but that doesn't mean that you just keep going back to the starting line. It just means that there's ups and downs. There's ebbs and flows and hills and valleys. And I think about it like walking. Like, you look at a toddler learning how to walk, and it is fucking hilarious. And then at some point, you have a little kid, and they've mastered walking and they've mastered running, but still they're kind of clumsy and their body's growing, and they'll trip over their feet. And then, you know, most adults who are able to walk, you assume can just walk without thinking about it. But every now and then, an adult who's been walking their entire life will still trip or lose their balance or something, right? But what you don't see is all the little ways that they course correct. Like me walking in the parking lot from my car into a grocery store. There are so many opportunities to lose my balance that as an adult, I don't even think about because my body just course corrects. Where if I was a toddler, I would have fallen on my ass, right? But because we're so used to course correcting all those little tiny micro balance shifts, we don't even think about it anymore. But they still happen. But yet we still also trip sometimes. You see what I'm saying? Like to be like we were talking before about enlightenment, and I think enlightenment is that 100% impossible perfect measuring stick. Like people, you can strive for it, but it's not going to happen. And you know, it's not supposed to happen. But eventually you're going to get to a point where you course correct so habitually, so easily, so readily that when you hit a point where a less developed person would fall off the wagon and spiral out of control, you don't, because it's turned into a mastery of walking. Not that you don't have opportunities to trip. You just are really good at just kind of like having that experience, seeing it, observing it, using your tools, and getting back on the path to the point where it doesn't even look like an opportunity to trip even presented itself. But it did. And then sometimes, even when you're a master walking, you still fall.
That's, you made me think of like the 4 stages of consciousness. Or of competence, not consciousness, competence. Oh. And you're describing like the 4th stage is unconscious competence.
You taught this to me.
Did I?
Like 12 years ago.
Oh, well, there you go. Look at that.
So for the audience, what are the 4?
Well, the first one is unconscious incompetence. So
you're not good at it and you don't realize that it's a thing you could be good at.
No, you're just totally, because it's unconscious. You have no idea that you're not good at something. Like it's just it's not even on your radar. You don't even know that you have a knowledge gap. The second is conscious incompetence. That's when you have the awareness that there's a gap in understanding, a gap in skill. Then there's conscious competence, where you now have the competence, but you're still having to be very mindful. Like you have to really think about not tripping. Like if we're using your walking example, you're still thinking through that and paying attention as you're walking to not trip. You're not tripping, but you're having to think to do it. And then that fourth stage is the unconscious competence, where it's like for us driving a car. We no longer have to think about, anything we do when we drive. Whereas when we first learned how to drive, you're constantly checking your blind spots and paying very close attention to sort of your surroundings and what's around you. We do it by rote now. So that's called unconscious competence. So, but sometimes that can lead to, when you get into unconscious competence, it's in a way stifling, right? Because you're unconscious about it, you don't realize what you
don't have a beginner's mind anymore.
Yeah. And so is there, the best place to be is in conscious competence, because then you're constantly in a growth mindset. You're paying attention.
Conscious competence. Right.
Conscious competence.
Well, there's this book, I don't remember who wrote it, but it's called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, Zen Mind, something like that. And it's all about having a beginner's mind. And it's almost like if there was a little midpoint right in the middle of those where you're competent, you're conscious, but you're also aware that you could be more competent.
Yeah.
So it's like between competent and incompetent, but conscious.
It's like conscious incompetence and competence.
Yes. Conscience ambicompetence is like the sweet spot.
Like the sweet
because
spot.
Then you don't get complacent.
Yep.
And like I were talking about how I was driving in the rain, and all of a sudden I drifted for the first time in my life on accident because I was not conscious, because I was so confident in my competence.
Yep.
And then no matter how competent you are in our walking metaphor, you still fall. And then the task becomes not to judge yourself for falling. It's not, I should be better at walking by now.
Yep. So this, if we apply this to sort of where we showed up today, when you are in unconscious competence, it's very easy to go back to that stage one, because it's like you're not paying attention, and because you're not paying attention, something is inevitably bound to happen. And so you just go back to stage one, but it is an evolved stage one, because you still have the competency there. It's just that you either need to course correct or need the reminder, or there's a lesson to be learned there.
Right.
That would be a fun class to teach. That would be a fun thing to figure out, is how to stay in conscious competence with a touch of incompetence.
Well, that's just the beginner's mind. That's just approaching every single time you tee off like you're a trainee at golfing.
Yeah, well, I need that for sure after this weekend.
You just need better sleep, Abby.
I just need better sleep. I do. Yeah. That's interesting, though.
Should we talk about the fact that we're going to start coaching together?
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, because that's what we're going to do. I have a bunch of ARC clients. ARC clients. They're coming out of the woodworks now that I've started talking about it. Surprise, surprise.
Imagine that.
Right? I had no idea that's how it worked. You would tell people it's a thing, and then they're going to ask you for the thing that they didn't know was a thing before you told them.
Yeah, see?
But I also, in that podcast episode where I talked about it, you had an epiphany that would have helped me in the middle of the session. But I had to go back and say, oh, by the way, also do this. And so I thought, why are we not doing it together? So then I asked you, why aren't we not doing it together? And then now we're offering it together. So if you want to get healed, like energy healing / coaching / all the things that both of us offer all at once at the same time, then that's something that we also offer. You can just
So where can they sign up for that?
Okay, so I don't have that set up yet.
Oh,
but
jeez.
But I do have TrueNorth11.com is underway. And no, it's not underway. It is way.
It's live. Yeah.
It is overway.
Ah.
I don't know what that means. So it's like when Ross was like, it needs to be implicit. Anyway, so you can email us at hello@TrueNorth11.com.
Number 11. Yeah.
Yes, TrueNorth11.com. Or Abby@TrueNorth11.com to reach Abby. Or if you want to reach me, surprise, surprise, it's Ryan. at truenorth11.com.
Look how easy that is.
And just be like, what are we going to call it? I want a twofer.
A twofer.
I want a bother.
Can we call it a twofer?
I want a twofer. You have to say in the subject, I want a twofer.
Twofer.
Because I want to know how you're going to spell twofer.
Exactly. I would spell it TOOPHFER.
You're just not confident in that PH. Like, just in case the PH
just to make sure we really get that
a twofer.
We're going to add the F.
I would have spelled it TWOFER. Twofer.
Well, that's how,
It's
a
a twofer.
homeschooled smart person would spell that.
I am half of those things. I am homeschooled.
That's exactly how I would have spelled it, but it sounds better at
TOOPHFER11.com is our new.
We could just call it the 11 session. Two ones.
An 11
Abby
session.
and Ryan.
It's a 1 and a 1.
It's a
the
1 and a
11
1
session. An 11. I want a twofer.
Which adds up
11.
to 2.
You can also say 11 session, but I want twofer.
The twofer. Yeah.
A twofer one. So there's that. Now that we're doing announcements, do you want to talk about our 1 year?
Yes.
What we're going to do for our 1 year? Because we're coming up on our 1 year in 7 episodes from today.
Yep, 7 episodes from today.
What are we doing for that
is
episode?
Our year anniversary. Well, we have decided to do something fun and let you all get to know us a little bit better.
Yes. What?
I don't know why that was funny. I don't know why that was. Yes.
I'm just actively listening to you. I'm very interested in what you're about to say.
Because there's a lot of questions that we get from time to time about who we are, why we do what we do, how we learned what we learned, all kinds of things. So we want to. So basically, it's going to be an entire episode of Q&A.
Yep.
And we're going to be asking each other questions that come from our audience, and we will answer any question that you ask. We are like
any
open
question,
book.
Any within reason question.
Yes.
But I do like the idea of the answerer not knowing the question before it is asked. So
so tell us about the process.
The way we're going to do it is you can ask a question to me or Abby and or Abby. One of us. You can ask as many questions as you want, but here's how you're going to do it. If it's a question for Abby, you're going to email it to me. If it's a question for me, you're going to email it to Abby. And we're going to take turns reading questions that you guys have sent in. You guys, gals, gender
Peeps,
fluid, non-binary
humans.
People
Souls.
sent to us. But the one that's answering is not going to know the question until it's asked. So
I think it's kind of fun.
Yeah, it's totally fun. It was a great idea.
So literally, though, it can be anything like, what is your dog's name? To tell me about astro projecting. Like, it can be anything, right?
Anything that you just want to hear us answer.
There you go. Yeah.
And send in as many as you want. And get your friends to send in as many as you want. And while you're at it, like and subscribe. And
talk to your cat and ask them what question they would like answered as
well. Get
well.
your cat to ask us a question. We will
if you need to
prioritize
know,
those at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah. How to talk to your cat. That's episode something.
Just listen to all
7.
of them over again until you find the cat.
We're
really not good at knowing what we need to have, like a catalog of just high-level topics that were in each one.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I think that's all of our announcements.
That is. So, what are you grateful for?
I am grateful that I have this little document on my phone where I can coach myself out of being defensive. It helps so much. I'm going to put it on our tribe page. And if it gets good, I think you gave me an idea for one thing I can do, like an actionable. And then if it takes off there, I may actually turn it into something that we offer. We need to set up a merch site, but I think it could evolve into something really cool. If it's not, first I need to see if it's already out there, because I'm not going to just. Anyway, I'm grateful that I have the thing for me. It's written by me, to me, custom to me, and how I operate and how I know myself. And it cuts through all my bullshit. It gives me what I need to hear.
Yeah.
And, I used it yesterday. I needed to. I was sitting in a parking lot feeling very defensive. I go through the thing, and then I breathe, and then I'm like, oh, okay, now I can address this in a more healthy way. And then I did, and it was great. And so I'm just super grateful that I had the crazy idea to make that for myself, and that it's a thing that I have now.
I love it. I really love it. And it keeps you the observer of what's going on.
Yes.
It's like that third party. Even though it was you that wrote the document, it's still like that outside of you thing that you can refer to.
It really is like
it's
a best friend that you grew up with, because it's like, I know that the person who wrote that sees through all my bullshit, and there's no reason to even try to bullshit myself.
Yes.
But then on the back
right.
end of it is acceptance and love and compassion and a withness. But then also a call to action.
Yeah.
That's like, okay, well, if you have something to own, you need to go own it. If you have an apology, you need to go make one. Like, it doesn't really, I don't know. It's exactly what I've learned that I need to hear. And having it written down like that enables me to kind of externalize the source so that I'm actually hearing it, instead of having to both be the coach and the coach-e. Like,
Absolutely.
you know, like it's, I don't know. It's the only reason that it's not like something I'm ready to just package and sell is because it's so bespoke to my experience. So I'm trying to figure out how to make it something that's universal but still has punch.
Sure.
I think it's going to turn into more of a tutorial on how to build it than the thing itself. Anyway, that's my gratitude.
I love it. All right. Oh, goodness. I know I've said this one before, but I'm going to say it again. No, she's back at college.
Oh, no.
We don't have her anymore. But I am grateful for her. She still keeps in touch. Awesome. I am grateful for my sister. Yeah, I know. I say that a lot, but I think there was a very important reason why our two souls chose to be in a soul group together. And I guess I'm just grateful that when, like, as I'd mentioned earlier, she had a PTSD moment that was pretty significant over the weekend, and that I am her person, that she trusts me, and I'm a safe enough person for her to give me that and to help her come off of that, you know, and recover and kind of bring her back to balance and figure out, you know, why it even happened in the first place and things like that. So it's weird. We've always just had this really intense connection on that level where I'm able to, no matter what's happening, come to this place of really calm and really still for her. And that, you know, she trusts me and loves me enough to do that for her. So she's just a pretty significant person in my life, and she makes my world a much better place. So
she definitely has that effect on people.
Yeah.
Like the one time that I hung out with her when I went to go hang out with you, but you weren't there, but she was. And we actually like hung out for a while and did a lot of laughing and took a selfie together. I felt like we had known each other our whole lives.
Yes.
Like, I have that effect on people, and she has that effect on people. So the
does.
second we saw each other, it was like, did you just jump out of a garbage truck? No. And then we just like, you know, just went into it, and then we're riffing and doing a dance on the side of the road for oncoming traffic to honk at us. It was just it was so much fun.
Yes. Yeah.
There's nothing like being trusted, though.
Yeah.
That's the one thing, not the one thing, but that is something that people can't fake.
Yes.
Like when someone trusts you, that is a huge, huge signal that you are on the right track with who and what you are and how you're showing up.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's a good point, because she's my evidence a lot of times when Figment is doing his thing.
She is my
making me
evidence.
Doubt.
Oh, shit. There's more there for you to unpack.
Yes.
And we're out of time.
Yes, we are.
Do you have anything else? Because we are way over time, and I'm also kind of loving it. Well, that's your dogs.
That's my dog. So it's
until next time, everybody. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for being there.
Bye. We are grateful for you. Thank you for listening. And if you like what we're doing and you want more, then you can join our tribe to interact with other like-minded individuals. You can go through our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/True North Podcast 11.
Is it Podcast 11 or is it True North 11?
Oh, shit.
It's in our show notes. If you want more than that, you want some more hands-on healing stuff that we do, I do actual energy healing and body work, and Abby does life coaching and workshops. You can find the URLs in our show notes when we figure out what they are.
And we are always trying to increase our reach and bring more people to find their true north. So we would really appreciate it if you could leave a review and rate it in whatever podcast platform you use.
Done. That's perfect. That was
What about
perfect.
the gratitude?
Oh, this one. Hang on. And one last thing. What are you grateful for? There. I said it. I said the thing.